Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
The Trump and Biden campaigns dig in for a fight as the final votes are counted in a handful of states that have yet to be called for either candidate.
A false threat surfaces about white supremacists planning violence against people of color. We'll show you how community leaders responded.
Michigan continues to record several thousand new COVID cases a day, and more schools are responding by taking action to keep students at home. It's good to have you with us for Local 4 News at 6. Let's start with coronavirus because the state just released today's numbers after a bit of a delay.
Today, Michigan is reporting 3,763 new cases and 43 new deaths. Today's new cases mean we are now over 200,000 total cases in Michigan. The rate of hospitalizations is going up, but the percentage of people on ventilators is lower than it was before. We're tracking those numbers and more for you on clickondetroit.com.
We're seeing the rise in cases forcing schools to change their plans. University of Michigan says students who don't have to live on campus next semester should learn from home. Michigan says it will have mandatory testing, though, for those who do have to be on campus. And local school districts, including Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield, Grosse Pointe, and Berkeley, all making the switch again to remote learning. Governor Whitmer still looking to the Republican-controlled legislature to help her on the COVID fight.
She wants a state law that would require mask wearing, but it's not looking like one is forthcoming. For more on this, we turn to Local 4's Rod Maloney with more. And Rod, as we've seen, any sort of one-size-fits-all policy is a tough sell to Republican lawmakers.
It's a very tough sell, and as a matter of fact, the governor has said that she believes it's crucial that the legislature pass a mandatory mask law as a way to get more people to wear a mask in public and pretty much everywhere else in the state of Michigan. But there's a reason why this isn't going over well in Lansing: pure hardball politics.
But we do think that it would be helpful to our health, our safety, and our economy if it was codified in a bipartisan way with the legislature, and that's what we've asked for.
So the governor asks for COVID bipartisanship, something legislators like Republican State Representative Steve Johnson of Allegan says she's been uninterested in until now.
This entire issue has been politicized from the beginning from the governor.
And he says the governor decided early on she'd go it alone, and she did.
You're refusing to work with us to try to compromise, reach an agreement, and instead always hurl insults at us, say that we aren't following science, and yet at the same time, she won't share the data with us.
Johnson chalks up the governor's request of politics in that Republicans held the legislature in this past election, despite predictions that would not happen. Johnson says now the governor needs the legislature for the rest of her term in office. Still, Michigan's COVID numbers continue to rise. Hospitalizations are up, and the governor says the deaths are sure to follow. So is there any middle ground to be found in terms of fighting this crisis? Probably not.
We want to make sure that otherwise healthy individuals, that they can go about their lives, that they continue to live a free life, that they can continue to prosper, that we're not taking away their jobs, we're not unnecessarily hurting the economy, and yet at the same time, we can protect those vulnerable individuals.
Now, the Senate Majority Leader had put out a statement saying essentially that there is a law in place. It's an order from the MDHHS, and he says that's what the governor needs. That's what the governor has. Back to you.
Now, Rod, Michigan has a new House Speaker. What's his take on all of this?
Well, he did do a statement yesterday. He spoke out, and essentially what he said is he's looking for balance in all of this. And what the legislature wants to see is more consistency at the county level in terms of having control over this. The House Speaker said that basically that the governor is a party of one, and that's how she handled this entire thing. And he says not the right answer.
All right, Rod Maloney live for us tonight. Thank you, Rod.
Joe Biden is set to address the nation tonight at 8 o'clock as President Trump and the RNC continue to file legal challenges against what they perceive as irregularities in the ballot count. Let's look at the electoral map. There has been no change since this hour yesterday. Associated Press still has Joe Biden sitting at 264 of the required 270 electoral votes. President Trump currently with 214. The map may not have changed, but Joe Biden does appear to have the edge because of this. He's pulled ahead in the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, I should say, of Pennsylvania, by 14,000 votes, but there are still votes to be counted there. In Georgia, they are likely headed for a recount, about as close as it can get, after Biden pulled ahead today by around 4,000 votes, just a few thousand votes left to be counted. That's awfully close. That number that still has to be counted includes an unknown number of military and overseas ballots, which will be tallied as long as they were received by 5 o'clock this afternoon. A couple of big military bases in Georgia, including Fort Benning. Not Fort Benning, I'm blanking. Fort Benning's in North Carolina. Things are expected to take longer in Nevada, where right now Biden is up by more than 20,000 votes, but that margin did narrow a bit over the past 24 hours. Now, President Trump making it clear he won't go down without a fight and will contest the election in court. But the Biden camp is firing back with talk of having Trump removed from office the hard way if it should come to that.
The race to the White House is nearing the finish line. As the number of uncounted ballots has dwindled, Democratic nominee Joe Biden is within striking distance of the 270 electoral votes needed to take the presidency, now leading in the critical battleground state of Pennsylvania, while protests continue on both sides.
We, the people, know what's going on in this country. We know that this is a plot. This is a coup against President Trump.
The president's team has made it clear they will contest the election. In a statement Friday, President Trump saying, "We will pursue this process through every aspect of the law to guarantee the American people have confidence in our government. I will never give up fighting for you and our nation." Meanwhile, Joe Biden's campaign said this: "The American people will decide this election, and the United States government is perfectly capable of escorting trespassers out of the White House." Also today, the vote counts continue in key states, delayed by a record flood of mail-in ballots.
While some, including the president, continue to spew baseless claims of fraud, claims for which his team has not produced one iota of evidence, what we have seen here in Philadelphia is democracy, pure and simple.
For the latest on the ballot counts coming in from the remaining states, and by the way, I was right, Fort Benning is in Georgia, Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Sorry for the confusion. Keep it here on Local 4 as Lester Holt and the Nightly News team continues their election coverage, coming your way at 6:30.
Meantime, the day after a judge dismissed the Trump's campaign lawsuit asking for ballot counting in Michigan to be stopped, it is clear there are more legal challenges coming from the Republican Party. Trump supporters gathered once again outside of the TCF Center today, even though the election work was already finished inside. Black Lives Matter protesters showed up as well. Both groups dwindled to just a handful of people by this afternoon. But as Hank Winchester reports, it's been a pretty intense week over at the TCF Center, which was thrust into the national spotlight as poll workers tried to finish counting those ballots.
Right now, it's supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement that have taken over the corner here near the TCF Center. Earlier today, it was supporters of President Trump and VP Pence. As you'll see, it's been a very dramatic week here in downtown Detroit. Stop the counts! Stop! The chanting. The clashes.
Back up off the door.
The counting. What a week. Downtown Detroit capturing the attention of the nation as the battle over ballots here in Michigan heated up.
When you walk in, they ask us to check in and they ask what party you're with. And then as soon as you say GOP, they say, sorry, we're at capacity with both parties.
After hours of counting millions of ballots, results coming in from the Secretary of State and the city clerk. Biden with the win here in Michigan.
Our goal is to ensure, again, we're being transparent, but also fully accurate, and that the public, you all, can trust the results of the results as an accurate reflection of the will of the people.
A record turnout in Michigan, yet days later, some questioning the results. Protests again today downtown as the country now waits for numbers in other key states.
I just wanted to find out what was going on with the vote and what the process was. There are quite a few ballots that are in question, and I'm just here in support of the president and democracy in general as a whole.
And Detroit police remain here on the scene, keeping a close eye on this situation, but allowing those who want to protest on both sides of this issue to do so and do it peacefully. We're here in downtown Detroit. Hank Winchester, Local 4.
All right, thank you, Hank.
Well, in stark contrast to all the turmoil, we do have the weather, and my.
It really is nice. Ben, you've been sort of flying under the radar this week, no pun intended.
It's a good idea.
Well, there's not much time to talk about anything else, that's for sure. We started the week nice. We're going to finish it nice, and it looks like this may carry into next week as well. Just a gorgeous stretch of weather ahead of us. Look at those highs today, 71 officially, but some of the areas that were west and north of Detroit actually made it even warmer. 74 up in Flint, 73 in Howell and Lapeer. And as we get later into tonight, we are expecting to see these temperatures fall as we take a look at those maps. Those numbers are going to be going down tonight into the mid 50s. Very nice indeed. But as we go forward, 71, a pair of them there on Saturday and Sunday. And we could be at least tying or breaking 3 out of the 4 records in the next 4 days. The next big impact as far as not so nice stuff isn't coming until Tuesday, and we'll take a look at that coming up in just a few minutes. Don't forget, you can get the entire 10-day forecast, including the weekend outlook. It's all in the Local Forecasters app, and as always, it is free in your app store by searching WDIV. Guys?
Well, thanks, Ben. With the election still undecided and COVID cases rising, there's a lot of tension in the air, and that means threats on social media. However non-credible they may be, they are taken seriously.
And one such threat linked to this coming weekend said white supremacists would be targeting black people. Priya Mann takes us through what happened. Priya?
To some people, this fake social media message looked legit at first glance. It started gaining traction online, even catching the attention of law enforcement. But the NAACP says it did not share this message and has not received any credible threats.
Wanted to pause on this moment to bring clarity as there's been a message circulating.
The NAACP shared this video online after a fake Facebook message was being shared on social media and via text and email.
With regards to white nationalist organizations and their attempts to bring harms to communities of color. We thought it was important enough to let you all know in this moment that those claims are false.
The Facebook message stated white nationalist groups were having initiations this weekend, and as part of it, black men and boys would be targeted and harmed. The message urged people to pay attention to their surroundings and spread the word. The president of the NAACP Detroit chapter, Reverend Dr. Wendell Anthony, says none of it is true.
We have to take them seriously because we don't really know what's on the other end of that. But I want to tell everybody that it did not come from the NAACP.
Reverend Anthony was disturbed when he became aware of the fake social media message on Thursday, saying people started calling their branch worried about potential violence by white supremacist groups this weekend.
It is not true. It did not come from the NAACP. It's just part of this terrible environment that we're in right now, which has rumors going across from every corner suggesting all kinds of things.
In the midst of a pandemic and with a country divided following the presidential election, he's urging unity.
But my most favorite part of Scripture is this, and this too shall pass. I say to everybody out there, and this too shall pass.
The NAACP has unfortunately dealt with this before. They had a similar fake threat back in July. Police are now investigating. On Detroit's West Side, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
Ahead at 6, the defenders investigate one of those stories that make you ask, who would do that?
An outrageous case of dumping here in Brightmoor. Someone dumping a dozen of these dogs right here.
Likely this was a breeder who was abusing and hoarding dogs that they were breeding.
The dogs now receiving some critical help. We'll show you how, but also show you how you can still help out these dogs and the people who are helping them.
Flu season is just around the corner, and it's time to bust some myths about the flu shot. The vaccine is safe. It does not give you the flu or make you susceptible to other illnesses. The flu shot is the best way to prevent the spread of influenza.